The other issue, of course, was that if you're going to create a new variety of housing, bringing more families and children, you'll need a school. And there were 2 schools in the area, both of which were in quite old accommodation, and so we were able to move into to create and build the new Divine Mercy School, which absorbs largely children from the local area. So the housing scheme allowed the council to invest in a new school, and we hope eventually, though this is not clear yet, that in the future we'd like to invest in a new health centre. But with all the health problems around in terms of funding, that's a challenge. But the school is here and completed and fully used.
Well, what kind of problem, funding-wise, are you facing as
Well,
regards to
yes.
health?
One of the clear arguments in Moss Side is that this is a growing community. Numbers are growing. There's not enough room in the schools. We have to create more classrooms, certainly at primary level, and we're beginning to experience that influx of more children at a secondary level as well as they come through. Now that means that families are moving into the area, families and individuals are moving into the area in quite large numbers. Our population is increasing, and therefore by definition that will impose a pressure on the existing health facilities. And I think everybody accepts that Moss Side does require more health provision than it's got. The question is, at the moment, given the health services funding problems, who's going to fund that extra? Everyone agrees it's necessary. The question is, how's it going to be funded? And that's something that the council is talking to our health partners about.
Do you worry more? How long have you been kind of involved in local politics as a?
Well, I've been a Labour Party activist for, I guess, 30 or 40 years. I've been a councillor for 12 of those years. So I've been very active in the last 12 years. Before that, I ran a charity which took up most of my time. It was a mental health charity for young people. And although I was as a Labour activist, I was very preoccupied with my job. In the last 12 years, I've concentrated mainly on Moss Side and my political role.
Are you more worried today than, say, 12 years ago about the economical situation which Moss Side are facing? You said the other day that change of government, or if something doesn't seriously happen, you fear things what will happen within the coming years.
I think we're facing a very, very difficult situation. I mean, in many ways, we feel probably under a Labour regime, and I would say that, wouldn't I? Under the previous Labour governments, I feel Moss Side and places like Moss Side really began to get themselves organised. There was money around to invest. There was passion and commitment, and that allowed us over the last 10 years to emerge from those difficult days of guns and gangs and to begin to feel that we were creating a cohesive community. In the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, under the current coalition, there's been a much more drive towards cutting back on budgets, in my view, a narrow-minded lack of investment in the northern cities, and places like Manchester and Moss Side in Manchester have really experienced that difficulty to the full extent. There's a report being issued this morning about the number of families who are dependent on free food handouts. Well, that was never an issue 10 years ago. There are other issues, but nobody was handing out free food for people who couldn't afford, to purchase food. So that's very worrying. And the council budgets for the next 2 or 3 years, our Manchester Council budgets are looking very, very poor. And it's very clear, if you look at the figures, that it is the north which has been targeted with the cuts, and the south has been protected to a certain extent. And I think that's a political decision. And I think we suffer as a result. And certainly Manchester City Council is as strongly as it can is urging the coalition government to look again at the resources it's giving to places like Manchester. And we would hope that if a Labour government were returned in the elections in 2015, things would still be hard. It wouldn't change overnight, but we think there would be a fairer commitment to northern cities and to what are seen as working class areas.
Was this fully working class?
I think that's the term isn't used much these days. It's quite an interesting term, isn't it? The terminology's changed a lot. I think there is, but I think certainly this is where people would see themselves in Moss Side as being people who are working class and proud of all that. No, okay, things are changing. There are now more students in the area. There's now more housing provision here, so it's more of a mixed community now. But there's still that majority of people who are really struggling in the current economic situation to make ends meet and to plan for their futures, in my view.
Well, you've grown up here. Something that I've learned to admire is the resilience. No matter who I talk to, no matter how difficult or how good life is, it's basically an answer, it could be worse, you know. And they really mean it. And the resilience here is extraordinary. And once you get to know people, I feel more part of things here, honestly, just after this short time than I've done, you know, I moved to the southernmost biggest city in Sweden, Malmö. And I feel more comfortable here just after 7 months. Part of the community.
On Monday evening, we had a farewell social event for Councillor Roy Walters, who's one of my colleagues who's retiring. He's been a councillor for 16 years, and he described very movingly his experience of moving from Jamaica when he was a young man to Moss Side, and he came here to be a bus driver, then a bus conductor. And he rose up the ranks. But he was saying that he stayed in Moss Side all those years, and you might have expected someone like him to move on, if you know what I mean. He's done very well. He became Lord Mayor, he became a councillor, and a lot of people say, oh, surely Councillor Walters will move, you know, and get a better house or, you know, a better area. He says he's never ever considered that because of the quality of support and friendship that he's experienced all those years in Moss Side. Of course, there have been difficulties and conflicts and challenges, but fundamentally, he was saying on Monday night in his farewell speech, it's a friendship of people in Moss Side which has kept him here, and that diversity and acceptance of differences. I think he's right. It's my experience too. I brought my family up here. My two children went to local schools. They were very happy here. There was only one occasion when my son witnessed a violent tussle behind our house, but apart from that, they felt entirely safe and secure, and they've moved on and done well.
If I mention the young governors and the crickets, what are you thinking about that?
The whole issue of youngsters forming possible gangs and...
No, the young governors who were the Manchester City...
Oh, sorry.
Hooligans back in...
Yeah.
Did you see them? What happened around? How were they kind of part of? I've read a book written by one of them about Moss Side, who actually went to Holy Name School where my daughter is going.
Yes.
And it was interesting.
I haven't read that book. I mean, my experience of that kind of gang culture during my time as a councillor has dominated, I think, all our thinking and concern, because we were talking about a very difficult situation where, admittedly, a small number of mainly young men were getting into really dangerous situations, and some were dying, and that's not something you can live with. And when, after a number of funerals, we all felt, this can't go on. This is not right. And interestingly, around that, the community came together, and through things like the independent advisory group, police, local activists. Is it still? Right there. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
So through things like the independent advisory group, which brought together police and community activists and local residents, came together and in a very determined way said, we're not going to stand for this. Another example of Councillor Walters was during his Lord Mayorship, which is a great honour to be Lord Mayor, of course, of the city. it's a non-political role, but it's a hugely significant role, and everyone talks about the way in which he opened the Commonwealth Games. That was the Queen. More significant for me was the fact that he, as Lord Mayor, led a march from Whitworth Park around the streets of Moss Side, a peace march to protest against the way in which guns were available and young people were harming each other. That was seen as a controversial march, it was seen as a political march, and therefore disapproved of by the Lord Mayor's authorities. But Roy was absolutely determined to use his office to say, this is something we as a community, and together we've come through that. Shall we move down to